Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Bryan Air Podcast. Special guest on today's show, a very good friend of mine, ex-colleague as well, ex-colleague of Ryan and myself, Jonathan Fickling. Awesome to have you on the pod, and particularly here in the studio with us, pal.
Yeah, man. Shot for the invite. Looking forward to catching up.
Yeah.
You said it's been a minute, eh?
Yeah, it's been a good couple of years. I mean, how long ago since you left SACS?
Well, I joined SAA in 2012, was it?
Yeah.
2012, eh?
Oh.
Sure, you were there a while, right?
Yeah, it was a good while, eh?
Huh?
Yeah, no, it was a chunk.
You had a command at SACS before you went to...
Yeah, so I finished up, and I think it was probably the best airline flying I've ever done at SACS. That, in fact, it was without a doubt the best airline job I had. It was short, it was a brief period, but I had a command on the RJ down there in Durbs, that Durban base, and it was lekker. It was a small base, extra friendly. It was just, I loved going to work. Yeah, it was great.
You hear it from a lot of people, like one of the best kept secrets in the industry. Moritz mentioned it on the pod we did the other day. It's almost like a bit of a connection between anyone that flew there, and it's definitely like this. You definitely feel it. You know, you bump into one of your old colleagues. A lot of it's got to do with what happened to the SA Express crew when the scamdemic hit.
Yeah.
But it was a really nice airline to fly for.
Yeah, the people there made it a thing. I mean, I remember when we first joined in 2010, I think the first time I met Jono was when he came to help us at that old SAA training center on the Paper Tiger and give us a few pointers.
You're right.
On flows.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I mean, that's going back a good,
Lekker.
15, 16 years,
I
something like
remember
that.
that, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, everyone at SACS, it was a good group of people, and we were quite tight there, and it's quite lucky that we've managed to form connections and networks. We're still in touch now.
Hey, man, and I think some of the ex that I'm closest to now are all SACS. Patrick Watson, chat to him every day. Matt
really?
Laderman, yeah.
Well, shout out to Pat quickly while you're at it, because Pat just sent us, I read it to Ryan a bit earlier on today, an awesome email. So, Pat, we will get back to you. But no, nice to hear from the guys.
Yeah, no, are doing well, eh?
No, it's good. Jono, you must be the only former SAA pilot that's not sporting the bars and stripes there at SAA, bro. What's the story?
Yeah, look, it was it was, life changed and whatever. Obviously I was one of the casualties of war in the SAA debacle. So, we were retrenched. And even before we were retrenched, when they just stopped paying us, I think we were all kind of in the same boat at SACS. It was the same story. And I think we all just took a beating. And I actually had it was like a complete crossroads in my life. And what had happened, well, anyway, SAA, they were giving us the boot and whatever, and a lot of guys have gone back and whatnot, but I was just, not for me, man. I wasn't going back there. Done my time and done my bit and whatever. And so, without a doubt, there were goals that I didn't meet. I always wanted to be a long range, a wide body captain, but it didn't happen. Anyway,
it's weird. I also feel the same. Those goals and those things that you set for yourself, they allow you to get up in the morning and just go to work. But on the other hand, when something happens, you need to then go sit down and actually reassess the whole situation and say to yourself, are those goals that I had 5 years ago, are they still the goals now, and what's changed? And the fact of the matter is, so much flipping changes. And how you and I touched base a couple of weeks ago again it really caught my attention, because I was away in Paris, and Jono sent me a message. I responded and had a quick little chat, and then he sent me a voice note. And the voice note was so cool because I could just hear an engine pumping in the background there. He's like, Bryan, I'm not sure you're going to hear this, but I'm on a downwind at the moment. I'll get back to you shortly. And it was just cool. It was
sterile cockpit, really. You're on your own there, doesn't matter.
You're on your ace. But it was just a cool, that's what I think of flying now.
Yeah.
Like if I had to just describe what a pilot is, that's what I would like explain to my lighty. Not so much like the 777 captain at Qatar that's doing his 4,000th hour for the month, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But Jono, awesome to catch up. Just going back, your journey as well. Well, let's start with our journey. I mean, you were at SA Express after you and I had worked before together at Executive Aerospace. Yeah. But even before that, am I correct in saying I remember you bombing around in a turbo DAC at some point, or
so it's right. My first aviation job was your old man. I was at Executive Aerospace. Old Robin Rabeck and Kenny Hubbard interviewed me. Old Robin, I miss that kid. Quite a character, old Robin. But so I don't come from an aviation family. I'm the first pilot in the family, and it was a tough time. I think my comm I got in 2003. And the market was dead, man. It was dead, and I'd handed out CV after CV after CV. You know, I had a 200-hour comm pilot. I did my instructors. I had an instructor's rating, and that was about it. And eventually, I got into Executive Aerospace. And I mean, met a lot of Oaks, met Bryan, a lot of Oaks through there. And Oaks said, like I say, Gary Gorge. I mean, we joined together. He's a 380 captain now at Emirates. Yeah. Yes. And our careers were quite like parallel. Like we were at Exec together, and then he flew a Herc. I flew a turbine deck, and then I went to Saks, he went to Mango. We went to SAA, joined like a month apart, and then he went off to Emirates, and he's a captain there on 380s. So like, you know, he's gone that way. And then so I was flying after Exec. I flew that turbine deck for a couple of years. Also amazing flying.
Didn't you fly that with Bix van Rensburg?
That's I flew with Bix. I flew with him for a few contracts. He ducked after that. Another Mark Bookie was another guy. Jimmy Gass did my conversion. It was like and I mean, I got there with honestly probably 300 hours total time. First tail dragger was a deck. It was a
handful to fly.
And it was amazing. I look back with such fondness of that flying. Also, same deal. I mean, I had no responsibilities. I must have been, I don't know, 21 years old or 20 years old, and just I would go up for 6 months at a time. It was just lekker.
Yes.
So it was a lot of fun. And then got into Saks after that. I spent, I think I was there for about 2.5 years on the deck, and then got into Saks. It was also an interesting time. Like I wanted to go to the airlines. That was sort of where like it was heading and whatnot. I got in there. I remember that first conversion was onto I went straight onto RJ, which was quite lekker. I think you also joined on the RJ. Yeah, you all joined on the RJ. And I remember that first conversion. Neil Smith was the instructor. Craig Keane we were together, and it was a big one for me. It was my first jet, first aeroplane with glass, first aeroplane with an autopilot. I was like a dog watching TV there. And I remember, but anyway. So that was, that was a bit of a slog, that conversion. I think I frustrated Neil and Craig, everyone. But got through that. And then, like we said earlier, I had a short command there in the Durban base, and got into SAA and was there for a good while. And
okay.
And then it all fell apart, the airline side at least.
That initial conversion at Saks, especially on the RJ, I think is one of the...
Yeah, it was worse.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my aviation career. And we were paired together, and I suppose that's where we became good mates, because it's just like...
Yeah,
you're in the trenches.
You're in the trenches. Absolutely.
It's one of the stories I tell the guys here a lot that are doing their type rating. You know, a lot of times we had a guy recently as well. He just refused to prepare with his partner. He like, he doesn't want to come in early. And like I said to the guy, do you realize you're not just selling yourself short now for this type rating, you're actually selling yourself short for your whole career. Absolutely. Because by pairing up with someone, you can actually form like a lifelong bond like Ryan and myself had.
Yeah.
I mean, this podcast wouldn't exist without that type rating.
Yeah.
And it was all because, we were working on the same thing together. We were both, and you learn from each other.
It was like we couldn't afford, because neither of us could afford to fuck that up, because we needed that job.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it was a big slog, eh? Yeah.
But fun days.
Yeah, incredible, man.
So we're speaking about, direction there, and obviously there's nothing stopping you from heading back to 2.0. I understand why you might not want to go back there. Similar reason to why Ryan and I will never go back to SA Express. But there's a lot of other airlines around, Jono. So the wide body stuff, the calling of the Middle East never bit you hard enough yet.
No, I had I was saying, there was I want to say a crossroads, but it was a very clear point for me. So so we hadn't been retrenched yet, but they had just stopped paying us. So we were suffering, like everyone was bleeding. And anyway, my wife and I, we've been very involved in the horse industry for a long time, for years. And during SAA, we had a sideline little horse business that we were doing just like a hobby, Anyway, when they stopped paying us, that's all we had. And so we dived into that and got working at that and all the rest of it. And what happened was Global was there was a chance that they needed direct entry 320 captains. I had no 320 command time, but I had a little bit of that RJ jet time. So anyway, it's a bit of an embarrassing story, but I laugh about it now. So I phoned old Sandy Bain. He was the head of flight ops, I think he was then. And anyway, so I said to him, listen, can I bring my CV and come and chat or whatever? So he said, no problem. He'll let me know when he's available. And I clearly remember it. I was in Kailami. I was with horse clients there and whatever. And then he phoned and said, listen, he's got in about an hour's time, he's got 15 minutes. So I screamed home and have a quick shower and change. On the way, I phoned my wife. I said, listen, print me a CV. I need to take it quickly. I've got 10 minutes here. Print a CV and whatever. And it was on the computer and she was doing her thing. And I said, just a cover page and all the rest. Anyway, so I rush there, get dressed, it's just around the corner here, And so I go into old Sandy, sit down there, and I've got my CV and I slide that bad boy across the table, and I noticed that she spelled curriculum wrong. Not like circulum or stuff. And my heart sank. I was like, oh, this is bad. In first impressions matter, and this is bad. So anyway, I'm like, oh no, this is bad. So and then I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's not going to notice. And old Sandy, nothing gets past him. So within about half a second, he's like, your circulum beats. Anyway, long story short, I didn't get that job. I don't know if it was because of that. I don't think it was that. But what happened was, anyway, it was a good icebreaker. But the point is, what's that whole thing about prior preparation?
Yeah.
And you're talking that about the simulator. Prepare, prepare. And that was a perfect case. Anyway, I was chatting to him about, and he said to me, look, he said there is a chance that there's a place for you here. And I thought it was a good chance, 320 direct command, whatever. But he said, look, you've got two little boys and you're going to go away for a long time. But at that stage, I was like, I was desperate. We didn't have, we didn't know where it was going.
Yeah.
Other guys hadn't resigned from SAA yet, all the captains and things. Everyone was hanging on and waiting for all the better days. And I knew they weren't coming. And then what happened was, I promise you, it was it was so clear cut that I had a few sleepless nights about this decision about going away. And I had this clear picture of my wife at home, looking after these two little boys, trying to keep everything together, and I'm sitting for 2 months away, wherever they were sitting, and all the rest of it. And I was just like, what am I doing? I can't do this.
No.
And the funny thing is, and then it was I had peace. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. And then literally the next day, old Des Warden, I think he was the chief pilot at the time, he phoned and said, look, a whole lot of SAA have now applied like captains, and so they're going to take them as direct captains because it would be less training and cheaper and all the rest of it, but they've got co-pilot positions. And I said, I don't want a co-pilot thing. I was going to phone them and say, listen, take my name off the list there. And from then on, I just knew there's more to this. I'm not doing that. We'll fight it out. We've got our little horse deal going on, and we were surviving. And and from then, it's actually, yeah, man, a lot's changed. It hasn't been easy. I mean, it's been a slog, but I think it's part of my life. And like I say, other guys that have gone that way, that went to Emirates happy and things, but just for like, and I mean, that's a big thing for me. It's like everyone's situation's so different.
Yeah.
And I see it like my two little boys. I mean, they're little farm kids. I don't even know if they own a pair of shoes between the two of them. Like they wouldn't survive there. And my wife, she's outdoorsy and she loves her horses and things, and she loves her gardening, and I couldn't do that, and I was just like, we'll fight it out here, and oh man, it's worked out well,
It's like one of those things you can sit down with a blank sheet of paper, and then you can write like playing with your kids in the afternoon. What monetary value could you put to that?
There's no amount of money.
And then you start adding those things up, and you start, for me anyway, saying, well, I can't actually afford at the moment to be an A380 captain at Emirates, to be honest.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I'm not being funny about it. It's just because you would never get that back. And, Ryan and myself been extremely lucky one that, like, we had each other, Go back to your famous LinkedIn post. What was it called? Don't do it alone.
Don't go and do it alone.
Yeah, and we were lucky because when things went south, man, there's a lot of value in having someone else to pick up the phone and say, "But are you feeling this? Because I'm not so sure." And then you kind of balance each other out a bit. Absolutely, and I'm incredibly proud to be here where we are today, to be doing this, because only we know what we went through at the time, and but a lot of it's in the past. And talking to you now, it's the past is the past, the future's in the future, and the now is the now. And what are you doing now, flying wise? Because it sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah. So what happened was I had so when we carried on with our little horse deal, and we were working hard at that, and it's a perfect example of what you put in, you get out, and we built this little business, and it was running really well, and I'd missed the flying. I mean, I must say I was flying all along. I had a little J3 Cub in the hangar there at home, so I was doing a lot of that in the evenings with the kids and stuff, and I mean, that's still a passion.
The best.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then what happened was I had a farmer from a little town called Fall, which is like probably 45 minutes from my house. He phoned me and he said he wanted to come and chat about, he had a whole bunch of horses that he needed help with or whatever. So I said to him, no, come and we chat. And he came over, and he also flew. He's got a Seneca, and anyway, we were chatting, and then like that evening he phoned me back, and he said, him and his neighbor, also farmers, they are looking at buying an airplane to spray their own crops with, would I be interested in flying it for them? So I was like, yeah, we can talk about it. Like aviation, oaks talk, and a lot of talk, but you got to wait till something happens. About a week later, he phoned and said, okay, we bought the airplane now. So, and that sort of sent me down the ag aviation, the crop spraying route. It was a massive learning curve. And so that's where, that's been my summer season. I've been doing that now. And, then in the off season, so that I work for those guys. It's two farmers that own this aircraft, and we operate for them. And then in the off season, and so it's seasonal work. So it's normally between November and sort of March thereabouts. And then in the off season, I've been doing some that low level survey with Excalibur based at Warrnamboom. And some ferry flying bits and pieces and things like that. So keeping busy. Yeah.
Nice, Jono.
Yeah.
No, it's nice to chat to you, man. It's nice to hear something different too, because it's a different path.
Yeah, I'd say your aviation path's gone a lot more of a hardcore route, because I've seen some of your photos from those caravans that you were ferrying.
Yeah,
I mean, ferrying, a single engine across the Atlantic takes big brass balls, man. I mean,
yeah, it's I think it's a different, completely different mindset. It is, absolutely, especially from an airline point of view. Everything, ETOPS and everything's like, it's so, I mean, now you're sitting, and without getting too dramatic about it, you're sitting somewhere over the North Atlantic, and you feel alone, like, I just tell myself those good old Pratt and Whitneys, they keep going, and so, but it is, I mean, it is a different feeling. But having said that, like, I don't consider myself a huge, like risk taker. A lot of it wasn't, we were very careful with the planning and things like that. Matt Rademan actually he sort of got me into it. He was doing it full time.
Really?
And I mean, that guy, he was faring crazy. Like he was faring those little diamonds, DA40s, single engines, up and down, like great. I stuck to the turbines, I was happy with the turbines. I mean, they were beautiful airplanes, brand new, all the cool G1000 equipment and, liquor stuff. So that was very, very cool,
Yes.
Matt obviously was used to the Pistons because of the shitty Land Rover that he used. Where's the turbine to be too modern?
Yeah, he's doing well. Also, I chat to him almost every day. He's
just
flying,
joking, Matt.
Yeah. He's flying a 320 up in Dubai. He's based in Dubai. So it's actually the same company that old Paul Yeomans works for.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a Sheikh that's got some G650 or something, and then a 320. So Matt's he's flying that now. So,
nice.
Yeah, he's not working very hard. I think he flies about once every second month. So
that's our type of,
no, Matt probably spending the rest of the time surfing or.
Yeah, kite surfing. That's exactly what he's doing.
But otherwise, Jono, I see we all family guys and, long-term prospects, a lot happening in South Africa at the moment. There's instability. There's all sorts of things going on, but we still here. I keep saying the guys that probably wanted to leave, they've left already. And you're in South Africa with a lot of guys that want to be here. From an aviation perspective, on the domestic frontier, we spoke about SAA, but there are airlines, there are opportunities. I suppose the argument, and I'm not necessarily speaking, about you, but, for youngsters out there that'll be listening to this, they're busy doing their comms and spending a hell of a lot of money. And now there's a couple of guys saying, oh, this is not really prospects. There are prospects, and there's probably a lot more opportunity, there is a lot more opportunity than there was for us, going back to the mid to late 2000s. What do you say to them?
Yeah, and I agree with that because, I mean, these days it seems like, a 23-year-old can decide, hey, I want to be a pilot, and, 3 years later he's in the right seat of a 7.3 or a 320, And I think that's cool in some ways. And so if that's the way you want to go, I think that's great. I think for us, we slogged it out. I think it was a lot tougher when we were going. And I don't for once think that I think that was a great thing. And where I saw it, even at SAA and things, and you'd have those long flights through the night, and some of those old bullies were there, and you guys that were flying up in the war, on the border and things like that, and you could sit and chat to them, and even the DAC experience, and we could talk about things, and it was cool. And then there would be a guy that maybe had sort of gone a shortcut route, but maybe a route, and they, from wherever, from flight school to link to, and they didn't have the stories and things like that. So I think, if the airline route is where you want to go, I think it's the best time if that's what you want to do. I think there's fantastic opportunities, and whether it's locally as a stepping stone to get to some, other companies, I think it's an incredible time. But I think the cool thing is and I never, getting out of the airline industry and, now doing the aerial application, crop spraying and things, especially, there's a whole different segment of the industry. And not only that, I mean, there's so many different things that are really cool, man. And from a flying point of view, I haven't had a better time flying than I have in the last couple of years,
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been really, really cool.
I'm sure. Yeah, you're inclined to stick in your lane a bit, and you think about flying. What would success mean in flying? And you kind of picture yourself being a 380 or 350 skipper flying somewhere. But that's not the case. We had my old man on, what's going on a few months ago now, and he spoke so fondly about the type of flying he did. I know for a fact that he wouldn't change a single thing had he had the opportunity to. So there are so many different areas of aviation that you can go into. It's nice to hear a story about one. I want to go back to SAA a little bit, because SAA, what we think of now, is not what it was in the past, and the same as SA Express. It had its issues. It cost the taxpayers a lot of money, but they always had very good training. and the pilots that were there were always very happy. I want to know, what were those sort of long haul flights and that like, Jono, because Ryan and I never got there, but I used to, boarding a plane in Frankfurt after sim training, you kind of looked at the South African tail there and you thought, I hope I can go fly that thing one day. It just seemed like a nice place to be with a nice bunch of guys.
And it was. I definitely felt, look, and without a doubt, like that, the day I got in there was, I think if I can think of one of the proudest days of my aviation career, it would have been the day I got accepted. I remember the old Stephen Ramasodi was the HR chap that phoned and said, okay, here's your start date. And I remember that, I think that was the proudest day. And I mean, I had some incredible years there, but there was a definite towards the end, like the whole feeling changed a lot for me, at least, and so I started on the, as a P3, a boy pilot, as we called it, on the 340s and 330s. And then I went into the right seat of the 320s and whatever. And so I didn't fly a long range as a co-pilot, but as you're still part of the crew and whatever. Yeah. I enjoyed it, but I'm not like a night owl. I wake up early, we go to bed early and wake up early. So those long slogs through the night was a bit tough for me. And then also I found myself bidding for like the Sao Paulos, for instance, because it was like a 3-day. It was there and a back. I like that. It was a day flight there. And then it was like one night and, you go chow steak and whatever and incredible meat. And then you climb in and it was like a 7.5 hour flight home. And then I was back at home for a couple of days and stuff. So I think there were
comparison to what would another one be, one of the longer ones?
So there were other guys that, and when they had more seniority, and you even saw it, like guys that would bypass were turning down command because they would stay senior as a co-pilot because they could then get the routes that they wanted. So I mean, there were guys that would do 2 Washingtons a month. So and those were 10-day trips. So they would go, via, I think, I can't remember exactly. I think they went via Dakar. Yeah. And so you'd spend a few days there and then go to Washington, back a few days and back. And so they would do that. They'd go home for 3 or 4 days and then go back again, And so, they were earning good meal allowance and things like that. There were guys that, they were maybe 3 or 4 years from retirement. So they were just, but so it, like each oak had their different, their different needs, or different stages of life, and then, like I say, for me, I ended up, even when I was on the 320, like we had a friend of mine, Ryan Duncan, who's also become one of my best mates, and we used to bid for these Kinshasas through the night. It was lekker. We'd fly 2 co-pilots and 1 captain, and you'd fly there and then turn around. You'd get there at like midnight and turn around and come back, get back at whatever it was, 4 a.m. And then you would have like 3 days off.
Yeah.
And so we used to do that on a Tuesday. You get back Wednesday, you have Thursday off, and then you bid for Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, So like you sort of adapt that, But as far as the long haul flying went, there were good times, there was fatigue and all the rest of it. Fatigue was a big thing. Like I realized it when I went onto the domestic, how tired I was from that long range. And as a P3, you're getting the West bunk time and things like that. So I was tired, man. So these guys that do it until they retire, hey man, that's I think it takes you take a beating.
Is that maybe one of the other things in the back of your mind? Maybe you haven't given it too much thought from that perspective, but like, these guys at Emirates and these big airlines around the world, you can't tell me that they aren't tired. They must be flipping tired. Yeah. And you speaking there about a favorable roster with a bidding system, not necessarily just a number in a machine.
Yeah.
It must be hard.
I think that is massive. And those guys, we went a lot north and south.
Yeah, they did east, west.
They went east and west. And I think there's times, other guys like old Malcolm Finlayson, he's been a Trip 7 captain for years now. And I think it goes through stages, their rosters, I think, I know like a good friend of mine, old Colin Miles, he was a number 1 on the seniority at SAA for years. He joined when he was like 21 years old back in the day. And he retired, he had heart attacks and everything. He was finished, like from a fatigue point of view. So, and he'd been there for 40 odd years, but I think the fatigue is a massive thing,
Yeah.
No, I tell you what, it's funny. Hey, I think when we were up and coming, there used to be this kind of FOMO amongst your peers.
Yeah.
If you were like at a charter company and most of your mates were ducking off to SACs, everybody had this thing like you got to get in there because that's where the crowd's going.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big thing for many, many years.
It was like our generation had a lot of that, but I
then
noticed
Emirates
the
became a
youngsters
thing.
now, like we see it here at the Sim Center as well. Got the 1900 here. Guys are they're staying on the 1900 for many, many years because they're earning a good salary. Their lifestyle's good. They don't want to go and become a SAA 737 driver. They're not interested because first of all, they can't afford it. And two, why? Yeah. So I think a lot of that was maybe,
I don't know, things have shifted.
It's definitely different.
There's the lifestyle. Yeah. And I think also like for me, when you're 21 years old and whatever, you're happy to like be at the bottom of the seniority and go and slog it out and and have to and get the worst flights because you got this plan and but when you get it like for now, and I mean there's a good example like old Pat Watson and I mean he's turned down a United start date. Really? He'll get another one. He's turned it up because for him he's flying a Lekker citation. He works literally 6 months of the year. He's got a little girl and he stays at home. Now, if he has to go and start there at United, you're at the bottom of 12,000 pilots or whatever their fleet is now, and you're going to, for sure, you're not going to get your home base. You're going to be on standby. I think you're going to spend most of your off time commuting. You're like, what the heck, Not when I'm 41 years old and I think he's about the same. So, and like I say, everyone's circumstances and what they want out of things is different. So everyone will follow a different thing. But I think that's also the big thing is you must do what is good for you and your situation,
Maybe that's a message that pilots need to get given a little bit earlier on, and not just follow everyone's going there. So what do you really want to do? Like Jono said, I mean, Jono's mentioned 2 avenues of flying, like flying the DAC and the ag flying that we've never once spoken about on the podcast. One, because, and I pick up, I mean, I subscribe to, I think, probably every single aviation news outlet you can. And I've never actually picked up a huge amount of information on that. It's probably very niche. A lot of people probably never thought about it, but there might be a few people listening now going, shit, man, that's an idea.
It's one of aviation's best kept secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I must say, from a flying point of view, it has been the most satisfying. And I've always liked stick and rudder flying. That's always been, grassroots aviation.
I can tell by the jacket, John.
Exactly. So that's always been my passion. And so I felt like in the airline environment, and there's challenges to it too, like for sure. I'm not minimizing the flying and, Oaks say, you don't fly airliners. Of course you fly them. But for me, like the satisfaction that I've had in this agricultural aviation flying has been incredible. I mean, it's proper as close to stick and rudder flying as you're going to get.
Jono, what are the barriers of entry like there?
So I think the tough part with so we fly tail draggers, like pretty much every ag plane in the country is a big tail wheel airplane. So, and these days, like tail wheel flying is not a common route, So, and then the insurance requirement is pretty steep for these, for crop sprays and things. So you need, and that's a hard part to get is the tail wheel time. So that's a difficult one, and because it's not the norm. A guy might go and get 200 hours as a comm, and then he'll go and instruct and whatever, and get to 1,000 hours, and he's got 1,000 hours of convent or nose wheel airplane time, and that's cool. But it doesn't really help when he wants to get into the ag game, So that I think that's a big part of it. And then also it's just like and it's like you say, you actually don't even hear the information about it. And for me, I mean, I grew up. My old man's a cattle farmer. I've grown up in the agricultural industry, but I had never pictured myself as a crop sprayer. I'd seen it, and I was like, those guys are mad, man. And then so it wasn't somewhere I'd followed. And then only until I got involved, like even like I say, that chap coming to me and saying, "Listen, do you want to fly?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And then going through that and going through the training and the ag rating and all the rest of it, only going through it did I get involved in it, and then what a cool industry, and so for sure, I think the best way, like if guys are wanting to go down that route, it's to go speak to. There's a few big agricultural or aerial application companies, like Osmond is a big one there based at Bethlehem. There's Oaks and Delmas, all the farming sort of places have Middleburgs. They've got, and go and check the Oaks, go and watch them load and watch those airplanes fly and watch the Oaks go stand on the edge of the land and watch them turn and things like that, and get involved that way, and then you can sort of see how it happens.
So you mean you can't just soup up your 172 and chuck a tank in the back there with some crop spraying dust?
No, not anymore. I think back in the day they used to. I've seen pictures of old J3s and Super Cubs with little booms on and things like that. But no, it's become a very vital industry, and it's a very important part of the agricultural industry, that the aerial application. And so, and it's, the cost of the aircraft these days and things, it's very professional. It's not, I think, crop spraying, or aerial application, as we like to call it, sounds a bit fancier than the crop duster. But, it's changed a lot back in the day where it was just gung-ho Oaks and, they take the old Stearman and go and spread dust around the place, with like I say, the cost of the equipment and the aircraft and the cost of the chemicals and things, it's a very professional industry. It's not just some crazy oak diving into a land and spraying,
And health concerns, none?
No. So not from a chemical point of view. So that's improved a lot. Like chemicals these days are a lot safer than they used to be. I think it used to be a very big factor. But, as the pilot, you're pretty concealed in your little, in your little cockpit there. The guys that are mixing, they're a lot more exposed to the chemicals and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of process and procedures and PPEs and all the rest of it and training that they go through to, keep safe and stuff. But generally, to be honest, there's probably more like chemicals on your Woolies lettuce that you go and buy than you would get exposed to in the aircraft.
100%. And be honest, do you sometimes pretend you're flying a warthog or something?
All the time. It's hard not to, especially when you got that helmet and you close that visor. Then it's business, eh?
No, that's cool, Jono.
Yeah.
That's very cool, man.
Yeah, that's totally different to what we normally talk about and hear about.
It's nice to shoot the breeze with you. Can I go back a little bit as well? Early days at Exec, we did lots of nice trips to Bamako and met some nice people and had a good time. And it was certainly a good foundation for our flying careers. I'm always so skeptical about living in the past. I think a lot of people do. One of the big things we've noticed, speaking about SA Express earlier with our colleagues there, a lot of it is like, remember SA Express and, it was a good time and all the rest. Don't you miss it? And I'm always inclined to say, no, I don't. I don't regret anything. I'm happy where I am, but it's up to us now to forge the future that you want, I mentioned South Africa earlier on, long-term plans and all the rest. Got to be careful what we say on the pod because there are lots of youngsters that do listen that are here, and there are certainly prospects like we're speaking about. But from you personally, Paul, are you planning on hanging around, seeing how things go?
Absolutely. So I've and one thing I must say, what's been very cool, I found the general theme of your podcast is the overall positivity, and that's a big one because and I think we've all traveled pretty extensively. Without a doubt, there's no other place that I want to live than in South Africa. And I've been to the States a lot. And maybe if I was a 20-year-old and I was happy to live in the back room of someone's house and slog it out, maybe. But I've got family that live in London, and I've got family all over the show, and I've traveled. There is no place that I would rather live. I'm not going anywhere. I think we've got incredible opportunities and there's potential. We've got our problems, obviously, but so does the rest of the world, man. You know, and I think I look at it, and we've sort of set things up nicely where we stay, and we've got our little setup, and we just normal average income people, and we live like kings, all of us. When you look at it. And when this whole SAA thing was sort of happening and all the rest of it, I went and a good friend of mine, he like a businessman and a sharp chap, and he's got a Bonnie that he flies and things like that. And I went to chat to him, and I sat down there and I said, "What now?" So first of all, don't panic. That was a big one. And he said, just have a look at what you've got. Like, look around you and things like that. Where in the world are you going to have what you have?
Yeah.
And it's true, eh? Like, I think we all. It's easy to look at the problems, and we've obviously have our political issues and all the rest of it. But I think on the whole, man, I think we're doing all right. Eh?
Yeah, I know. Look, I definitely, I'm on the same wavelength. I'm just going to tough it out here, and when your family's here, the weather, the food, not too bad. Yeah, we've got to negotiate politics and potholes, but it's no better in New York, I believe, and
And also, just like Jono says, it just depends on the phase that you're at.
Yeah.
And we got good mates, I mean, that follow the pod religiously, that have supported us, like guys, Yako, Mike in Oz, guys all over the place. And, they've made the move and they've made the most of it, that they're type of guys that would. John Lennon had that famous saying, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans.
Yeah.
And you got to be, if you're always planning to go, and you're always planning on, you never actually just
live, man.
Just live and be grateful for what you have right now.
True story.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Jono, it's been flipping cool having you.
Yeah, man.
Having you here. How can people connect with you, contact you?
Probably on Facebook. Well, I guess Facebook is the easiest. I often get messages and oaks that are interested in things like that. So I think Facebook would be a good place to start.
Cool. Connect with It's good to connect with guys that have been there and gone through it, and provide a bit of insight there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've enjoyed today, man. It's been
it's
really
been cool,
to catch up. But
lots more to chat about.
Yeah, well, let's make a proper effort to do it again.
Sounds good, man.
And let's keep in touch. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been great.
Been an absolute pleasure, Jono. We'll see you again soon. Cheers, everyone.